everybody, it's hobbitsizz, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. So in today's video, we are going further with our quest for more tournament information. We are going to be joined today by one of the top 100 players in the America Shard. His name is Sandtrap, very, very good player. And me and him are going to be going over some tournament lineups. He's going to be sharing his, I'm going to be sharing mine, some rationale, and what we think we're going to see in the tournament. So an overall, pre-tournament discussion. So if you guys like this kind of stuff, make sure to leave a like on the video. And without further ado, let's get Sandtrap on the call.
Lineup stuff.
Yeah.
You were saying that, I think you were saying that Fearsome Aggro has a better matchup against Thresh Nasus than Discard?
Yeah, well, at least that's what I found in my experience. So I'll run through. Yeah, so my third lineup deck, I was either thinking Discard Aggro or Nightfall Aggro. All right, yeah. So
what was your mentality in crafting the lineup? Because in my head, I was thinking you could go by comfort, you could go by you're targeting a specific deck, or you're targeting a specific type of deck, like mid-range aggro or control.
Yep.
Or you could just take the highest win rate decks, the three top highest win rate decks, and just slap them together. Or creating a lineup that just doesn't lose. Yeah, I think those are the main categories anyways. But what did you take a certain approach to your lineup?
So my lineup, at least most of my lineup, hits a certain approach where I wanted to play aggro decks, but I wanted to beat aggro decks. So I want like anti-aggro, right? That doesn't have to be full counter, but decks that are favorable in the aggro mirror, but still an aggro deck to beat out a lot of the more mid-range stuff like Draven, Shen, stuff like that. So
it's like how Nightfall is good against spiders, despite Nightfall is also aggro.
Yes, exactly. And Thresh Nasus is an aggro deck that can play faster than most mid-range decks, but still usually beats out other aggro decks because of just Shadow Isles package, So that's kind of the way I went with those two decks. And then Zoe, Aurelion Sol also does pretty good against more so burn style decks. Still aggro, but more burn because they have a lot of lifesteal. But I really like Zoe, Aurelion Sol as a deck. I think it's just that doesn't quite fit into my concept. I just think it's really, really strong.
Yeah, I mean, that's one deck. I mean, you asked me what I was prepping for a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I would have said Zoe Sol.
Yeah.
Because the deck I climbed with mainly was that Draven Sivir one, and I cannot beat Zoe Sol with that. So I was like, oh fuck, I gotta ban it and then craft my lineup based on that. But then things changed.
So your lineup, right, is you're going Draven, Sivir. You're going deep, and then what was your third deck?
MF, Quinn, Scouts.
Oh, Scouts. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I'm thinking the seasonal is gonna be, well, the perception anyways from the what I'm hearing online is that Thresh Nasus is fucking oh my god super good.
Yep.
But TLC is also oh my god super good, just lower play rate. So
yes.
I'm thinking I'm gonna get rid of Thresh Nasus and ban it, and then I still have the TLC problem. So I was like, well, I want to just target TLC. So that's where the mindset was, which really was driven by I crafted my lineup to support the homebrew deck that I made, the Draven Sivir. So I was like, okay, if I can beat TLC, but I can't beat Thresh Nasus, then I'm going to craft my entire lineup along that lines to kind of protect the strength and weaknesses of the Draven Sivir deck.
Right. And the Draven Sivir deck, it beats TLC is because of your spell shielded units. They have a really hard time getting around those.
Yeah, that and the overwhelm. I'm not saying I'm super favorite. I'm thinking it's 55-45 based on the games I played. But yeah, essentially they're Trundles, no problem. I can kill Lissandra. And I just have to, if I can curb out 3, 4, 5, 6, then every time I've done that, I've won the games. I just put pressure constantly that doesn't get board wiped by by just one removal card. They usually have to play 2 or even 3 in order to actually make a difference. So
I'm surprised you're going with scouts. I haven't seen much scouts like through ladder. I played, I don't know, against maybe one. I did play against one scouts deck with Threshnasis. Mo was playing it, or Emotional, whatever he goes by.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anyone else play it. So why scouts?
Yeah, I mean, I've never played scouts before until like last week. So
oh wow,
I'm super new to scouts, but I always viewed it as a tier 2 deck, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even sure that I still think it's a tier 1 deck. I still think it's kind of like tier 2. But with my strategy being, I'm gonna ban Threshnasis and I'm targeting TLC, and in most of the games that I've played MF Scouts versus TLC, I've done well.
Right.
I'm like, well, I think that's the strategy I want to do. Because in my mind, if all 3 of my decks can beat TLC, I don't even care what other 2 decks I bring. I'll ban one, I'll lose to the other one, and then I'll beat TLC. So I'll win the match, which is ultimately what matters is in the end. So that's been my mindset anyways. It's just kind of risky when the meta is so varied that, it's not like last time where you knew everyone was bringing fucking TFs and
I mean, the only deck everyone is bringing now is Threshnasis.
Yeah, it's either they're bringing that or they're like bringing a lineup to like be able to deal with it, or just ban it, which is
or just
what I'm doing.
From my experience in the past 2 tournaments, the most popular deck has either been played or banned. Most people aren't like crafting lineups to beat it. It's just get it out of here. We'll go with whatever secondary we'll play around.
Yeah, exactly.
Because crafting, like I was thinking about trying to craft a lineup around like beating Threshnasis, but it has its diversification of win cons is slightly too great to have me like really confident about playing decks against it, because it still has so many windows of opportunity with Atrocity and Nasus to win even against a favored matchup.
I agree, and especially when you have such explosive openings like that deck has, like even if you are like your deck is geared to it, if you just miss on your mulligan, you get a slow start, I mean, you could just lose anyways.
Yeah, like Lee Sin is a pretty hard counter to that deck, I'd say, but still isn't as hard as it should be because it can just get wiped out by Shadow Isle's opener.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's a certain deck out there. It's like, oh yeah, I play 3 box, the box main deck, and just ready to counter the explosiveness. It's super explosive. So there's a possibility that my lineup, like the idea of like targeting TLC, ban Threshnasis, I mean, I feel like there's a risk because when you have 1,000 players, not everyone is gonna be doing that. So I mean, it's a risk, but I think my mindset is I'd rather take the chance and win against like those strong kind of lineups, like get an edge there, rather than try to get an edge versus like the regular the fair decks, I suppose. So it could backfire. Of course, it just depends on who you get matched up against. But I mean, I think the mindset has merit, I think.
So what do you feel about your lineup against like so you're banning Threshnasis, but what about the like Aggro is obviously top meta besides Threshnasis. So what do you feel about your lineup against like the rest of the meta? Because you're not playing against like, especially with the high seed you're in right now, you're probably not playing against the top master players who are trying to like mind game everyone, right? You're probably playing against lower tier masters players or people who got into the last chance gauntlet, who will most likely be playing the most popular stuff. So how are you
talking about like once the seasonal tournament you're talking?
Yes, yeah, in the seasonal.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like
gotcha. I was like, what? I just played BBG.
No, not where you're at right now. I'm saying like you and BBG are so high seeded that like they do the highest player fights the lowest player kind of thing, right?
You're right.
Most likely they'll be using more aggro heavy things. So how do you think you'll fare against like spiders or pirate aggro or what's another one that's out right now? Like the Teemo burn decks.
Yeah, so that lineup you just described is what I played against last night. They had those the gauntlet where they
Yeah.
had like the last chance qualifier and you can get a glory
Yep.
thingy. So I was like, okay, this is great practice, you know. So I took the lineup I told you about and played in. I played that exact lineup that you mentioned: the spiders, the Teemo burn, and pirate aggro, and I won, but I could definitely see a world where if they just get like the nuts opener, you know,
Yeah.
I could lose. I will say my spider opponent did get like a nut. Like they had 6 units out by I think it was like turn 3 or 4. Their board was already like just full. I was like, holy shit! And it
Wow.
was against the Draven Sivir deck, and I won with 1 life left. I had 1 HP, but I still won.
Nice.
So, you know, and that was their nut hand. So I think the key is I'm teching like in I have 6 2-drops in my Draven Sivir deck, so I mull aggressively for that. And so you know, because you get a house spider against those kinds of aggressive decks that not every unit's going to be fearsome, so that really buys you a lot of time.
Right.
Then deep, I'm teching the Withering Whales, so that I can like not die to just aggro. So that's like my compromise. Is like, yeah, I'm a control deck, but I have these. You know, I want to go late, but I have these Withering Whales just in case. They've been working well, and plus the deck plays 3 Vile Feast anyways.
Right.
And a low curve. I must say I've out aggroed some aggro decks. If you go like 1, 2, 3 on just like a deep curve, I mean, their aggro plan's over. It's you know what I mean?
The only deep deck that I've seen is BBG's, and I believe
lures.
Yeah, BBG uses lures, and he has a very like I don't even think he uses. Let me pull it up here, but I don't think he uses Vile Feast or whales. Yeah, he uses 3 vials, but he has no whales in his. So
yeah, he uses fading memories, which I think is so greedy. I honestly think that's such a greedy, dirty slut kind of build. Like, you're just so like, I'm not gonna play against aggro. I just want as many resources for the control matchup as possible. And it's like, I don't know.
It does get you to. I think like his focus is hyper deep, right? And with fading memories, you fading memories on like a dredgers or one of your like sea scarabs, you can definitely hit that hyper deep.
Yeah, for sure. I have done that, but it's like when they have a super wide board that beats you before you can go deep, even with that kind of lineup.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like, and to be honest, I'm still playing 1 Fading Memories and 2 Withering Whales. So, and I'm still debating if I should keep that. I might go to 3 whales or I might leave it like that, but I just felt going 3 Fading Memories and then be like, well, yeah, I'm deep, but I'm also dead. That didn't feel so great.
You're deep, but your sea monsters still cost 5 or 6 to play.
Right, yeah. I mean, what's sick is if you can get the Nautilus and you've played 2 lures, I've had turns where it's like turn 7 Nautilus and I'm dropping 3 additional deep monsters and it's the game's over.
Yeah.
Because you get all kinds of. I had the whale on turn 4, to stop their shit, that kind of thing. So, and then what was it? The third deck, the MF Scouts. I need to play this more against aggro. I'm not sure how I feel about it quite yet. Usually, there's not that much interaction, which is where MF Quim seems to shine. Because you give me like a turn or 2, and 2 turns, and I could try to level up, and then the game's usually in my favor. But it just depends. Like if they have fervor, they're probably gonna launch it at MF, and then it just depends on if I can protect it or not.
Yeah, if you have like a sharp sight or something in hand.
Yeah. So yeah, it depends. I need to play test that matchup more, but and again, I'm still learning MF. Scouts, but I have learned a lot, and I do feel like I can probably beat many of the aggro decks. It just depends on how crazy their start is.
Right. I will say that if from playing, I played a fair amount of scouts, mostly when it had Ground Plaza was still give +1/+1, and scouts was actually like S tier.
Yeah.
But from playing a lot of scouts during there, like against aggro matchups, if you draw MF and like a Valor, you can basically win.
Yeah.
Most of their
That's,
units are at, like, you can pick off usually one of their units with your scout attack because it's only at 1 health, and then you can take out like a Draven or something with your second Valor hit, and it's a huge swing.
Exactly. That's what I've been doing, and I added in Cataclysm so that on the opponent's turn, if you Cataclysm on your scout unit, you gained an attack token.
Yep.
When it's on their turn. So I was like, holy shit, I can attack twice on my turn. Then on their turn, Cataclysm I can level really, really quick.
Yeah. Cataclysm is a really strong card in Scouts. I'm surprised that more Scout lists are still choosing to run like Relentless Pursuit or even the Barrier card over it. I think Cataclysm is really good.
I'm running 3 of each, of Relentless and the Cataclysm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm just like, because what I noticed is, like, it felt like the old versions are not focused on the win condition, which, if to me, anyways, it wasn't just like units plus Bannerman, yay, I win. You know, it was more like, I don't remember losing to MF Scouts ever unless it was to like a leveled MF.
Right.
And so to me, it's like, I want to focus on leveling MF then. So like stuff like Jagged Butcher, it just felt like, to me, it felt like shit. So I don't even play it anymore. And I just kind of put more focus on trying to level up because like against TLC, I'm not going to be like, yay, Jagged Butcher, get in there, but oh, Avalanche, and I'm dead. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
So, you know, it just feels really bad. But if I focus on leveling, I can shit on TLC. So I don't know if it's the meta or because I just don't like how previous builds were, but that's where the MF Quinn deck I have right now is heading.
Well, hey, that's kind of part of being a good player, right? Is be able to take a deck and being like, I don't quite like how this works, and then change it to better suit your style. So good on you for being able to do that.
Like Draven Sivir, no one's fucking running. Running that deck.
I really like that. So I saw your game against like BBG, and honestly, I didn't know it was you at first. I didn't like look at the names and was like, oh, Draven Sivirless. Like that's really interesting. Like I can see Draven with the axes. It works towards like reputation and everything. And then I saw it was you playing. I'm like, oh, sweet. That's great.
Yeah. It's been so. You remember like when the set first originally came out? Like, I remember seeing some LeBlanc Sivir. You know, people were, like, trying all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
And then it died off because I guess it sucked or whatever. And then I remember thinking, like, why... It feels like people are getting baited by reputation into playing cards they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, because against Aggro, for example, LeBlanc is horrible on defense. Like, just absolute booty hole trash on defense. But Draven is solid. You know, 3 health versus 2 makes a big difference against aggro and even just stuff like Mystic Shot. So it's like, huh.
And Draven has the perk of getting you another axe too, so you will have a guaranteed +1 damage without having to actually sacrifice a card if Draven blocks.
Oh yeah, which is already like, you know, Draven's already super awesome for that. But
yeah.
And then the interaction between Whirling Death and Bloody Business along with Axe to be able to increase, you know, your range of targets essentially. I mean, and then it just started working with the rest of it.
The most interesting thing, I have your lineup pulled up because I immediately imported your deck after seeing that match.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I love it. The card that strikes me as the weirdest is the Armored Tusk Rider. Why Armored Tusk Rider?
And I'm surprised because there was a version before that used the card Hunt the Weak, but
Hunt the Weak is trash.
I originally put it in because I was like, well, if they against TLC, when they play Trundle, like on turn 7, if I Hunt the Weak, they lose their pillar, and they can't win without it. But you know, it didn't. So it was good there, but not good against other matchups. So
yeah, it's a good tech card. I can definitely see you like maybe if you get into top 32, because you can see what everyone's decks are running if you get into top 32, right? And so you might like put in a hunt a week to like counter people, but I don't think it's great to use it solely for the TLC matchup.
Yeah, it wasn't that super great. Oh, and I have to go in about 1 minute, but
All right.
So
All right.
Armor Tusk Rider, essentially it was because the deck needed Overwhelm, and it needed a constant, like a solid. It needs solid units, some solid beefy Chungus units, that can stay on the board and apply a lot of pressure. And Armored Tusk Rider has a lot of synergy with the Shurima side of stuff because Exhaust and Quicksand lowers the attack of the opponent's lowers the attack of their units. So you create situations where, especially with vulnerable through Rockhopper or just Exhaust or even Bakai Sandspinner, you create situations where it's the whole concept was focused on quick attack plus vulnerable. And Armored Tusk Rider, if you lower their attack, is essentially the same thing as quick attack because they're not damaging your guy back.
So, I love that. I never thought of that interaction. That is awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I could go on and on for days about the deck, honestly, because I really like it. But yeah,
that's cool. I'm definitely gonna have to try your deck out. I'm probably not gonna use it in tournament because I don't have enough time to practice with it, but I will most likely play it afterwards just because it sounds really fun.
Yeah, it's really good, man. I highly recommend it. But hey, I do gotta take off, but hopefully we can talk some more again, during the week and about lineups and seasonal and all that.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so that is our talk with Sandtrap. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about his deck. I honestly really, really like it, as you heard me say to him. And so I think I want to make a video about this. I would love to play with this and show you guys like how the Exhaust and Armored Tusk Rider combo works, because that sounds really, really fun to me. So going back to my lineup a little bit. So I didn't really say this fully or as thoroughly as I kind of wanted to, but yeah, so I have 3 decks for my lineup. The first deck is Zoe Asol, and I'll show my list out here. So this is a Zoe Asol list that I have adapted. I played 15 to 20 games or so with it in Masters, and I feel pretty confident with the list that I have. I'll be posting the list or making a video about this soon enough, but it is a fairly standard. I have some slight variations to the list, but it's a fairly standard Zoe Asol list. I think Zoe Asol is really good. It's decent against aggro. I will say it's not like 100, I'm not like super, super happy with it against aggro, but it's decent. And if I play right, it can definitely win. And more so than that, though, it does do well against a lot of other decks. So like Draven Ezreal, this deck smushes. Against Lee Sin, it also does pretty well, which is one of our other counters to like Thresh Nasus, like I said. To Sandtrap. So it's just a very versatile deck, and I think that comes in parts with the Invokes are very versatile, and then Concerted Strike is also just a very, very strong card. If Mogwai has been complaining heavily about Concerted Strike, I agree with him. It is very strong, and it probably needs a nerf, but until that time, I'm gonna keep using it, especially with Aurelion Sol, because it's really good with Aurelion Sol. So that's why I'm running that deck. I know I have this like hate boner against Zoe. I still do. I hate her. Absolutely hate her. Terrible. But I have to admit, she is good. She is a very, very good value engine and can be a real threat if you get her leveled up. Next deck that I'm running, I already showcased it, is the Nasus Slay deck, the Thresh Nasus. So this is my version. I might play around with it a little bit more, but it is pretty set in what it is. And so the third deck I want to talk a little bit more about. So the third deck, I either got Discard Aggro. So I'm working with a Discard Aggro list. Again, pretty standard. Some versions of this deck are running Draven's Biggest Fan to ensure the Draven draw, because Draven is a very important draw for this deck. I don't mind that. It's okay. I'm also not the biggest fan of it, because if Draven is in your hand, it's a 2-1 that doesn't have much other synergy with the deck. so it's okay. I might put an A copy. I'm also not fully sold on the 3 of Arena Battlecaster, but what I do love is Suit Up. I don't know if I want to make it a 2 of. Maybe a 1 of seems pretty good. I don't know if I want to make it a 2 of, but Suit Up is fantastic in this. The number of games that I've won, like, I won a game against Nick Makes Plays because he didn't account for me having Suit Up on my 1/1 Daring Poro, and I won because of it. Like, it's a card that barely anyone puts in this deck, and it really takes people off guard, and I quite like it for that. But another deck that we're looking at is our Nightfall Aggro. So both Nightfall Aggro and Discard Aggro do a very similar thing in our lineup, right? They're aggro decks, so we're beating the mid-range matchup with these aggro decks, and we're banning TLC, which is the biggest control deck right now. So if we ban the biggest control deck, and then we have aggro decks to take out the mid-range aspect of things, are hoping that there won't be that many other control decks left outside of, like, Deep, which is kind of still folds to aggro. So Deep and TLC are the 2 biggest controls. So what we're looking at this deck is, okay, so how do we have an aggro deck that beats all the mid-range decks, but at the same time is really, really good against aggro? Not really, really good, but, like, I am better than other aggro decks in the mirror. And that's why I like Nightfall Aggro and Discard Aggro. Discard Aggro is very explosive, and that explosiveness helps it have more units on the board to start and can help it snowball other aggro decks as well. The ability to have Jinx on the board, and Jinx can help fill your hand up when other people run out of steam. Likewise, Nightfall Aggro is also very explosive. It's not really built upon that, oh, I'm going to hit you turn 1, I'm going to hit you turn 2, I'm going to hit you turn 3, and just keep widening on the board. Honestly, Nightfall Aggro is still in the game, even if it has done, like, no damage by turn 4, right? Because they can set up a very strong board with the likes of Crescent Guardians having 5 attack Overwhelm, with Doom Beast being able to hit you for Drain, with Nocturne being able to give everything fearsome, with Diana and Atrocity. So it can set up some very powerful combos. Now what I'm looking into, I'm trying to optimize this a little bit because I do feel like it has some shortcomings, namely that it has a hard time finishing it out against, like, decks like Draven Ezreal, which I feel like aggro decks generally do pretty good against Draven Ezreal because they only have single target removal. Outside of like a couple of cards. So for that reason, I feel like this list is pretty good against that. But this current version feels a little awkward, so I'll be optimizing that and seeing which of the 2 aggro decks I want to take. But so that's my list. More videos will follow of me playing Nightfall Aggro, maybe Discard Aggro. Maybe I'll do a video with Zoe Aurelian Soul. And yeah, that about does it. I hope you guys enjoyed me talking to Sandtrap and talking a little bit about my lineup. And so you can kind of learn more about what we think of when we think of going into the seasonal tournament, right? It's not just about, okay, how do I counter the meta, right? It's more so about how do I build a cohesive lineup. Sandtrap's lineup is, okay, he's not countering the most meta deck, right? He is countering the deck like next in line, right? He's countering TLC, which is still very popular, but not the most meta. And which is Lysandra Watcher, by the way. I honestly don't know why it's called TLC. Trundle Lysandra combo. That's why TLC. So Trundle Lysandra combo, that's the deck that he's countering. So he's choosing, so you can target ban a deck, right? So he's saying, I don't have to worry at all about Thresh-Gnosis because I can just ban it. And for me, I'm saying that, Lysandra Trundle is really strong against my decks, right? But what if I just don't play against it? Oh, yeah, I can do that. And that's why I'm just banning Lysandra Trundle. So it's different ways of thinking about it, right? Your lineup doesn't have to be good against everything because you can target ban some things. And so that's kind of where the seasonal tournament varies in line of, like, thinking about ranking up. So I'd say what you're doing exactly for ranking up might not be the same thing that works in the tournament, and vice versa. But that is just a little advice from someone who has currently been in 2 seasonal tournaments, 3 coming up. If you guys liked the video, thumbs up. That'd be great. And peace out.